It is a football Friday here on Birds 365, and damn, we got a lot to talk about. Jody McDonald, John McMullen here to hang with you. Johnny Mac heading down to AC to take part in the JAKIB Media produced get together tonight, but he's still with us, even though. Wait a minute. Are you, aren't you, at Oceans? It looks like you're at Oceans, but you're telling me you're not at Oceans.
I'm at, as far as you know, I'm right in front of Oceans on the beach side. You're on the other side, so
Yeah,
no, I
it's
am not
funny
at
how
Ocean.
and one of ours has plenty of sunlight, the other one not so much. It all
Yeah,
depends on the camera angle, I
well,
guess.
it's early, so you got to see where's the sun in the sky and all that kind of stuff. All
Yeah,
that.
absolutely funny. And have a good time down at the Maxwell thing tonight. I was trying to move my schedule around so that I could attend. I just couldn't do it. So have some fun there. But well before you get to the Maxwell Club award dinner tonight, we need to discuss what's gone down with the Eagles in the last 24 hours. I thought for sure after you and I wrapped up the show yesterday, well, we'll talk even that much more extensively about Howie Roseman's contract extension, and you and I exchanged several texts. I'm sorry, the way that they describe it with the number of years and what's two 2025 through 2012, it all gets very confusing and I think almost disingenuous. But I'm probably nitpicking there. And I thought that would be the main focus of today's show. Oh, then Fletcher Cox hit. And I'm going to tap into your expertise here, McMullen, because I have a pretty good grasp of the way the salary cap works, but I am by no stretch of the imagination a capologist, and some of the things go over my head and or escape me. And I just can't wrap my head around why what's transpired in the last, it's not even 12 hours, it's like 18 hours, somewhere thereabouts, that Fletcher Cox was released, but now it's being reported it very much looks like he's going to come back. Will the contract be guaranteed? Won't the contract be guaranteed? How much of dead cap hit has been pushed into the future? Fletcher Cox was gone, but now he's back, and I don't understand. Mr. McMullen, give your best explanation.
Well, the key parts of, and this is, I called it the most complicated contract I've ever come across, and for a couple reasons. One, because I'm not a salary cap expert either, so I kind of rely on certain guys. One we have on this show all the time, and Brad Spielberg, and who works with Jason Fitzgerald at Over the Cap, who, in my opinion, does the best job. When you talk about these contract sites that try to follow NFL players as best as possible. And when this sort of, if you remember, I think it was Ian Rappaport came out with a story that the Eagles would, are listening to calls about Fletcher Cox about a week ago. And we had that information broker conversation. I said, if it's out there for a reason at the time. There's smoke to that fire that the Eagles need to do something with Fletcher Cox. So, you throw it out there that he's available, blah, blah, blah. Todd Prance, his agent, tries to do his job and get people interested, see what happens. Thursday was a crux because Fletcher was guaranteed. Everything's about deadlines in this league. Everything's. And the Eagles would have had to guarantee $18 million to Fletcher Cox yesterday. Didn't want to do it. Hoping to restructure again. They've restructured so many times. That's why it's so complicated to begin with. And everybody's got these conflicting numbers. And, the original contract, which is sort of like what everybody was working off of when they started talking about dead money and cap savings and all that stuff. That was probably ripped up 2 contracts
I was going to
ago.
say, that's like 2 years old news.
Yeah. But it's hard to get these numbers public, especially when they're, they're not the original filing of the contract. They're amendments to the contract. So it's really difficult for those guys to track that kind of stuff down. So, the deadline caused the action. So all I can do from there is speculate on what the Eagles are trying to accomplish. They're not going to save a lot of money. I mean, they're talking about $14 million. That's the best number. We'll see what number it comes into when they actually bring Fletcher Cox back, and I think they're going to bring it back today, and we'll see. So why did Fletcher not just say, well, what's the difference if I'm not going somewhere else? If I'm going to agree to come back for this number for this season, why didn't he just say yes, and you didn't have to go through this rigmarole of releasing him? And, that's where Todd France comes in, who's a very good agent, veteran agent. People probably recognize the name who followed the industry, and he's Fletcher's agent. He's probably said, well, we're going to do this. Let's see. Let's see if anybody else is interested. And, it's a gamble. It's a calculated gamble. If you're the Eagles, he wants to come back. He wants to be here. But if you're completely free and somebody picks up the phone, I know as soon as the news came down, Zach Ertz was out there saying, come out to the desert, doing a little lobbying to get Fletcher Cox out to Arizona. You never know who's going to call. And if they call with a better offer, then the Eagles could lose Fletcher Cox. The dead giveaway that it was more of a bookkeeping trick than an actual release was that when the Eagles officially announced it, there was nothing from Jeffrey Lurie, nothing from Howie Roseman, nothing from Nick Sirianni. And this is one of the all-time great players, for people don't realize. This is one of the all-time great players in franchise history. If the Eagles were really releasing Fletcher Cox, you would have gotten the whole, as I call it, full Monty. When they release players like that, go back to even a Brent Selleck type. Lurie chimes in, they get a quote. They get a quote from Roseman. They get a quote from the head coach. He would have got that full treatment. He didn't get any of that because the Eagles were working to bring him back immediately. And, that's where we are right now. And why things, but as always, and you're seeing it with Desean Watson, who's down to Atlanta and New Orleans. My best guess there is they need a few more days to trade Matt Ryan, and he's going to Atlanta. But everything, because Matt Ryan had this deadline of Thursday as well for a certain amount of money, and they were able to push it back, and they're working on obviously moving him to create space for Watson, yada, yada, yada. And this is what good agents do, Jody. Every player, not every player, because there's bad agents, but every good player, you got to make a decision early in the league year. Agents put that in there for a reason.
Right.
That's why Fletcher, because then the Eagles have to declare their intentions at the very worst. Maybe they have to release him. Maybe they have to trade him. But from the player's perspective, and obviously as an agent, that's who you're concerned with, you have that certainty, and you have it early enough in the free agency process to where if you are put on the street, you can find some other place to obviously, and there's still money. If it's later, if it's May, everybody's budgeted, there's not as much money, you don't have a chance to get as big a contract. So that's why they put these triggers early in the league year. Todd France put this trigger in. They couldn't agree to a rework deal by the time the trigger was due. So they had to go through the mechanics of releasing him. And then it looks like they're going to be able to get him back. But when you do release a player, there is at least a chance that, again, the phone rings and you might get screwed. But it looks like the Eagles are going to get through this.
And a key element to it is the fact that with the release, they designated him as a post-June 1st release guy. So that means the dead money cap hit that they are going to take for releasing Fletcher Cox is spread out over 2 years rather than 1 year. So that I get, that I understand. That's why they did it. Certainly, as you pointed out, they were up against the deadline of guaranteed money. So here's the question I have for you. And like I said, there's been several reports. Kudos to Let's Go to the Phones, who were ahead of this above everybody else, information insiders in the NFL. John McMullen, you're truly kudos to them for having the source of sources who are ahead of everyone else. But the fact that they needed to do this now, is there any potential bad blood between the two parties? Because as you correctly noted, a lot of time this is just formality, paperwork that you can move. There's certainly money that can be moved around, but certain things that the player has to okay, they couldn't come to agreement. That's obvious by the fact that Fletcher Cox was released, is released, may well be working on coming back, but it's not official yet. How much of a worry is there's bad blood between the two parties? The Eagles, and I know they're two large parties because it's Fletcher and his agent. When you say the Eagles, it's Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni, the whole coaching staff. So we're talking two large bodies here. How much worry is that there's bad blood?
I don't think much. If there were bad blood, he'd just leave. And it's clear he wants to be back. He lives in South Jersey, he likes it. He's been here for a long time. He's comfortable. Even though he's probably, Todd has taken those phone calls and probably not getting the number he would hope for Fletcher Cox at his age. Remember, he's not a pass rusher. He's an interior defensive tackle. So people tend to give the big money to the pass rushers, the edge rushers. He's probably a little bit disappointed that, multiple years and a bigger offer wasn't out there, but he is a bit of a descending player. Certainly not the player he was when he was at his apex here. I think we could all agree on that. Probably Fletcher would disagree, but you get my point. As far as the stuff with Jonathan Gannon last year, look, man, I mean, people get frustrated. It doesn't mean that doesn't mean there's bad blood. We argue about stuff. We get frustrated with each other. It doesn't mean there's bad blood. There's no bad, I don't know, maybe there's bad blood from your standpoint. There's none from mine. People get frustrated in certain situations. And I wrote at the time that Fletcher, was used to Jim Schwartz. I mean, it's the old teaching the old dog the new trick, in that he's used to playing three technique and saying, go get the quarterback, rush, and that's fun. That's fun for a defensive tackle. And being more disciplined and playing 3 and 5 and 4 eye is not as fun. And I get that. And there was some frustration, but they cleared it up late last season. And he started playing better, and he started getting more comfortable. And the Eagles went on their little run, granted, against poorer competition, and made the playoffs. So, no, I think he was just frustrated. And players get frustrated all the time.
Key element to this is going to be, if and when Fletcher Cox re-signs with the Eagles, how much money is going to be guaranteed? Because that's what they avoided yesterday. It was a guaranteed, must be paid, counts against the cap, and write the check immediately bonus for Fletcher Cox. And right now the Eagles didn't want to pay it. If you're going to bring him back, you want to try and reduce that number at least by some. Do you potentially release it by the entire amount by being able to give him a contract with no guaranteed money? Now, if he's still your starting defensive tackle, you get the first day of the year, vested veteran, he played, boom, it becomes guaranteed automatically. But if something happens in preseason, if he gets hurt, if he is no longer even the Fletcher Cox that we saw last year, the Eagles could move away from him. How much do you think of this redone contract, if they can get it done? It's not done yet, but they're working toward it. If they do, how much do you think is going to be guaranteed?
Every single cent of it. This is how I'm going to describe it. He is now in the Jason Kelsey phase of contracts. He's going to get a Jason Kelsey contract. How the Eagles structure Jason Kelsey from year to year. Jason got $14 million this year. That's the number being bandied about for Fletcher Cox. Every single cent of it's going to be guaranteed. Now, not all of it's going to be on this year's cap. the Eagles are going to manipulate it like they do with Jason Kelsey and put voidable years on the end, so it looks better from a cap standpoint. But every single cent of what they agree to pay him is going to be guaranteed to Fletcher Cox. He's not coming back on a non-guaranteed deal. Every single cent is going to be guaranteed. And that's why you see, and you look at, they're going to get, depending on who's right, 16 to 18 million of long-term cap relief by releasing him, by this bookkeeping trick, I'll call it. And they're going to guarantee him 14 million, but they're going to have it better situated on the cap, similar to, as I said, what they just did with Jason Kelsey. So it's kind of a bookkeeping trick. That's the best way I can describe it.
So if they are able to pull this off and they bring Fletcher back, how much did they actually save? Because let's be honest, it looks bad. I think it was a very fair question I asked. Is there any potential bad blood? If you're Fletcher Cox, you can't be happy that they are doing this to you. Now, they're offering you $14 million. I don't know if any other team out there would be willing to do that. As you correctly pointed out, his agent is determining that right now to see if there is somewhere else, knowing full well Fletcher's preference would probably be to stay here. But, hey, if someone else is going to just blow him away with an offer and put what the Eagles are putting on the table in the rearview mirror, it could happen, and Fletcher could become an ex-Eagle. There's got to be at least some level of, let's say, disappointment instead of angst. Choose whatever word, and they have slightly different meanings. Between the two parties as of right now, Fletcher wouldn't play along with what the Eagles wanted to do. The Eagles said, oh, yeah, if you don't play along, Fletcher, yeah, we're going to have to release you and kind of force feed this creative bookkeeping that McMullen's talking about to help us out. Again, I just get the sense that this isn't going to be a match made in heaven, even if the two parties do come back together.
Well, it's
just the cold hard reality of the NFL.
Yeah,
is that what you're telling me?
It's the business of football, as they say. He kind of realized, if there's one guy, who, because he had been restructured so many times, and we always talk about those paper numbers on contracts, like Christian Kirk's, Devontae Adams now getting the largest contract, non-quarterback contract in NFL history. The key number is the fully guaranteed number. No, rarely do players see all that money, as you know, Jody, unless you manipulate it and stay healthy and, Kirk Cousins it, and you're a business Hall of Famer. Health is a big part of that. So, the funny money is different than the real money. He was never going to see a lot of that, and he knew that. And Todd France, I'm sure, explained that to him. So it becomes down to the real money. He was guaranteed, again, somewhere 16, 17, 18, depending on who's right and who's wrong, yesterday. If he gets back 14, it's not much. It's not much. It's a little bit of a haircut. Where it helps is from the salary cap standpoint of the Eagles, and then we have to see the structure. I assume, as I said, it's going to be very similar to the structure of Jason Kelsey's contract. And then the cap relief is going to be significant. So again, this is the gold star for Jake Rosenberg. If they could pull it off, this is what somebody like Jake Rosenberg is really good at. And, a lot of people don't know him, but he's the Eagles' sort of salary cap guy with Howie Roseman. And it looks like they're going to be able to pull it off and get some cap relief.
If something starts to percolate with another team and Fletcher Cox ends up elsewhere, did the Eagles cut off their nose to spite their face? Yeah, well, they wanted to save this cap money, and it looks like they're going to be able to save some. Not a big, if they're offering him $14 million and a number with 60, we're only talking about $1 million here, $1 million there. But they did have to go to risk of Fletcher Cox just walking away, not trading Fletcher Cox. And I think
they couldn't trade him.
They tried.
Yeah, they couldn't trade him. There's always calculated gamble. If you let somebody be completely free, like I said, somebody could call up Todd France right now, could be on the phone and say, you know what, we're going to give Fletcher 2 years and we're going to guarantee $20 million and he's out the door. So it's a calculated gamble from the Eagles' perspective. And, that's where you got to have your finger on the pulse of the NFL. And clearly he'd like to come back. Clearly he likes the area. He's gotten comfortable, and it looks like it's going to work out for him. And if it does, you got to give the gold star to Jake Rosenberg, as I said.
One of the residual effects is, and I think it plays either way, more so if Fletcher decides to go elsewhere, but even with Fletcher coming back and playing for the Eagles again, defensive tackle becomes a position that the Eagles are going to look to.
Might be a need even with Fletcher back.
That's what I just said. Whether he comes back or not, more so if he goes elsewhere, because then the need becomes immediate. But either way, defensive tackle might be a position we need to take a deeper dive on as to what the Eagles may be looking to add and or potentially have down the road. All right, down the road for us, as in 2.5 minutes from now, we're going to punch up our first guest, one of our favorites. He's covered the Eagles for years. He still does it part-time, but he's always good to hop aboard with us when we ask. Les Bowen's up next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Bang, guys. I'm the corner. Here with Birds 365. Busy last 24, 48 hours. Even though they really haven't added any players, there's still a lot of Eagles stuff to talk about because of Howie Roseman's contract extension and Fletcher Cox's contract machinations that the Eagles are dealing with. Here to lend us a helping hand on those two fronts and all other Eagle fronts is our buddy Les Bowen. Les, you're where we got to look up at you. Is that the way you set up your camera? So we have to be down below.
It's
to look
early.
up
Sorry, I haven't figured this out yet.
Yeah, That's good. It's good, Les.
It's not a good angle, but
you
know.
should be above us all. It's a great angle. You are above us all. But is this what you miss the most? These arcane restructure, trying to figure out freaking the most complicated contract in the history of mankind?
Absolutely not. But in fact, I hate. Apparently, I missed your discussion of exactly where this will help them with the salary cap. I'm puzzled. I've
called it a Jason Kelsey contract. He's on the Jason Kelsey contract. So I looked at Jason's contract.
Yeah.
And he's getting 14 million because that's the number going around for Fletcher, somewhere in that range, 14 million. They gave Jason 14 million. And there's a small base salary. I think it's 1.12 or something like that. The signing bonus is a little bit over 10. Then they have a roster bonus in there for 3, and the cap hit ends up with avoidable years in the Eagles trick ends up at just over 8 million.
But he had a contract.
Yeah.
And the dead money from that contract doesn't.
Yeah, the dead money's a different category.
So how? Well, it's not. I mean, how do they save money here? I mean, what? It's what, like,
and that's
so they make it post June 1st.
Yeah, post June 1st.
It's like a 13 million dead cap this year and like 15 million next year or something.
Well, here's the issue, and even Jason Fitzgerald, who's the over the cap guy, and I think he does the best job of anybody who follows contracts, but like nobody has the right numbers because they restructured this stinking thing so many times. So the number we're being given is somewhere between 16 and 18 million of long-term cap relief. So by that they mean post June 1st. So they'll know they're getting a little spike, but we have to see. I mean, nobody really knows because they've changed this thing so many times.
Okay.
But what is clear is they had this money guaranteed to Fletcher on Thursday, and that's what set.
They don't have to pay that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the dead money, I mean, that's part. They're going to have some dead money, no question about that.
But I think they will re-sign him. I just don't think he's a hot commodity. I think Fletch will be. I don't know if he'll be surprised, but the way he's played the last couple of years. And the kind of money that even 14 million, I just don't see a team anteing up for that for him at this stage of his career. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But if somebody does go out and sign Matt Ioannidis or somebody like that, I just don't think, Fletch is a great icon, all-time Eagle, Wall of Fame and all that stuff. But if you watched him last season, not that hard to replace, I don't think, really. I mean, it's hard to replace in terms of what other teams like try to scheme for him and double team him and stuff like that. But in terms of the actual production, you can get that somewhere else.
Real quick, Les, because my ears perked up and you've been around this team for a long time. And that's what I said. As soon as they confirmed they were releasing Fletcher, and there was no Jeffrey Lurie quote, there was no Howie Roseman quote, there was no Nick Sirianni quote. This is one of the best players in franchise history. When they are truly moving on from a player like that, they give him that kind of whatever you want to call it. But when that wasn't there, did that kind of let you on to say, something's going on here? Because
especially when they talked about, there's actual quotes from the team about working.
Well, yeah, they
reunion.
Yeah,
they don't ever say that.
Yeah,
if they're going to be caught, like whoops, I'll be amazed if they don't get this done. But I've been amazed before. But it seems like they're just giving him a new contract, and somehow this helps. I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll play devil's advocate. I'll be the bad guy here. The Eagles did this because they could. That they acknowledge how good Fletcher Cox is in the pantheon of all-time Eagle great players. but he's just not the player that he was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. He's a descending player, and they don't want to go above and beyond for a descending player, but they also want to do the right thing by an all-time Eagle great. So they made a judgment call, and they released Fletcher Cox. They're working hard at being able to bring him back on a contract that he'd accept, and it would work for them. And it's working for them if they put it out there as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if in 24 hours they're hearing things that no one around the league is coming close to the offer that they've got on the table for Fletcher Cox? And I asked John, he said, oh yeah, all 14 million of it will be guaranteed. What if they could get away with a lesser deal? What if
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know what happens then. I think probably he stays out there hoping somebody, doesn't get what they want in the draft, or, that suddenly there is a market for him at some point. But those don't tend to be big market deals, big money deals. When you sign later in free agency, that's very rare that someone gets a lot of money after the first wave of free agency. So, I don't know. Again, I think I kind of think it's all but done. I just think that they wouldn't be talking about it if they weren't very close to reality. I doubt Fletcher really wants to leave. He and Jonathan Gannon seemed to patch things up by the end of last season. Fletcher was being used more in the way that he was accustomed to being used. He's been here 10 years. He's never been anywhere else in the NFL. Unless, the Rams want you to play with Aaron Donald or something, I just don't see, how it benefits him to go join Carson Wentz in Washington or something,
Zach Ertz was trying to get him out to Arizona.
That's kind of interesting there. That would be kind of neat, but I don't know that Arizona really wants to do that. I mean, Zach isn't the GM yet, but I guess we'll see. But I think from what we heard last night, I got to think just like Claude Geru getting traded today, I just have to think we're headed in that direction of him returning to the Eagles.
Yeah, and there is a slight gamble. That's what I said. Anytime you give somebody their freedom, the Rams might call. The Rams might be on the phone with Todd France right now, Les. Who knows? And then you could change your mind. And we've already seen it in free agency. A couple players, Randy Gregory, J.D. McKissick. I think there was Zadarius Smith. Yeah. They all agreed to terms originally with teams and changed their minds. So until you put that pen to paper, anything can happen. And everybody talks about being a business. Business works both ways. The player can turn around and do what he wants as well. But I want to shift with you, Les, to the opening days of free agency, because it's a tradition like any other. I got my first, I'm sure you got them every year, on Thursday. Remember, new league year is Wednesday. I got my first declaration. Eagles off season is a disaster in one day. In one day. But are you a little bit surprised that it's been a trickle? Hassan Reddick, good value signing, it seems, for what they need. And a trickle from there. And obviously around the league, you see big names getting popped off. Or is this just business as usual for a disciplined organization?
Well, I'm a little surprised in that it's been so crazy around the league. I did not anticipate some of the things that have happened elsewhere, but none of them really had much of it. Well, the only thing that's really had an effect on the Eagles, I think, is the wide receiver market being nuts and guys getting 20-some million to catch passes. That definitely, I mean, we all thought, I think, that the Eagles, that a veteran wide receiver would be a very big target for the Eagles in free agency because they're young. They have some talent at wide receiver with Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins, but they really could use a strong veteran presence and a guy who's really good to kind of lead that group. And we all kind of thought that would be a very natural, it looked like going into free agency, a month ago, that there'd be a bunch of people to choose from, and you figured the money would be about kind of what it was last year with a little more. First of all, a bunch of guys re-signed with their current teams, and the market got scarce in a hurry. And then the guys that were out there started getting amazing deals that, unprecedented deals. Christian Kirk.
Yeah. How about that?
I thought they must have signed Captain Kirk, Lord, and I think that has affected the Eagles.
Yeah. They wanted Christian Kirk. Would have been a nice fit, but I mean,
and they wanted Mike Williams too. And apparently, so now we're going to be looking at somebody like Zach Pascal or something like that. And, but who knows? There's everything that happens, raises other possibilities. The Rams thing yesterday.
Yeah. Robert Woods. Yeah.
Yeah. That suddenly Robert Woods might be available. What do they want for Robert Woods? I don't know, but that's other doors open. So that's not, I don't think that the off season's a disaster. They've done some things they needed to do. They did get Hassan Reddick. I'd love to see them get a veteran wide receiver and a veteran safety, but I don't think you can say the offseason's until you get to the draft and those 3 first round.
Well, I was being facetious, one day.
Oh, I know. But there are people out there who are going to jump to those kinds of conclusions. Until you get to the draft and those 3 first round picks, I don't think the offseason is anything. That's the offseason right there for me in terms of the long run of this franchise.
There's certainly a big chunk of it. All right. Yesterday, the best wide receiver in the National Football League was traded. He wasn't traded to Philadelphia Eagles, who could use a wide receiver, veteran wide receiver. Oh, by the way, he's the best wide receiver in the National Football League. So who couldn't use him? He gets dealt from the Green Bay Packers to the Las Vegas Raiders for a first-round draft pick and a second-round draft pick. Well, you just mentioned it, the fact, Les, that the Eagles have 3 first-round draft picks, so they could surely part with one. So would they be willing to part with their second-round draft pick for the best wide receiver in the National Football League? Now, I know he had some say over it because he was just on the tag, and he inked a new long-term, very expensive deal with the Raiders. Eagles miss out here on not acquiring Davante Adams?
I don't think so, just because of what you said there. I don't think he wanted to come here. I don't think he wanted to go anywhere other than where he went. Apparently, the Packers offered him the same money to stay, which kind of mystifies me. I don't know that I'd be eager to jump to the Raiders from the Packers. The Raiders play in the toughest division in football. He is reuniting with his college quarterback and good friend and Derek Carr. But there's no connection here with Davante, and I don't think that was ever a possibility, really. The money would have been hard for the Eagles to, hard to do much else. If they'd have done that, I don't know what they would have end up having to do in terms of restructurings or releasings. And, I just don't think that was ever in the cards. That the Eagles are not at this point a top contender. He's a veteran player who wants to win. We can debate whether he's really put himself in a position to win, but I think he thinks he has. So no, I don't think they were asleep at the switch there. I think it just wasn't something that was going to happen for them.
Speaking of big name, big money players, I think we can finally, even though some people still refuse, I think we can finally close the book on Desean Watson, who was down to the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's going to go home. He's from Gainesville, Georgia. I think he's going to go home to Atlanta. That's why there's this, the Falcons have to do something with Matt Ryan. But it's interesting, Les, because you bring up the money and Davante Adams. Not that you're right. I mean, Davante Adams wasn't going to consider here. But just from the money perspective, you can get things done in this league if you want. The Eagles proved that last year. Yeah, you can
get them done, but we're seeing the effects, like with this Fletcher Cox thing. You can get them done by pushing money into years. Yeah. But at some point, you have to, like last season, the Eagles went without a player or two that they could have gotten in free agency had they had room, had they not had, Carson Wentz's $33.8 million NFL record dead cap charge. And people say, because teams don't go out of business or start playing with 10 players on the field, people say, oh, the salary cap is meaningless, but it really isn't meaningless. It's more nuanced than you think. People talk about cap hell. I don't think that really exists, but there are cap implications of things, and now maybe next year when there's supposed to be a huge spike in the cap, maybe that becomes moot. But right now, I think for this year, the cap is still pretty real for a lot of teams, including the Eagles.
And that's why I think Fletcher Cox's deal came down the way it did, because they wanted to be able to move cap charges to next year when the cap is supposed to go significantly up. All right, so you tell me they didn't miss out on Devontae Adams. Did they miss out on Allen Robinson? He ends up landing with the Rams, who already have Cooper Kupp, who have Robert Woods, who they say they're still going to bring back OBJ. Damn, how do the Rams keep adding these wide receivers and the Eagles are talking about Zach Pascal? Explain this to me, Les Bowen.
Well, the Rams won the Super Bowl.
The Eagles won the
really
Super Bowl. All right, it was a couple years ago, but it's not like they didn't win the Super Bowl.
Right. Well, they have a really exciting offense. They're in LA. They play in an incredible facility.
Sean McVay, you can touch the hem of his garments.
Yes, yeah, it's a pretty big deal out there. But Allen Robinson was the guy. I guess we talked about him on here at some point. I did think the Eagles would be in on him, and the money was big, but I kind of thought they would be trying to get that done. I don't know what happened there. If I'm Allen Robinson, I'd probably rather play for the Rams right now than the Eagles. With Jalen Hurts. But, that's one you can say that, one of the names going into free agency that I really thought, they would target, and it didn't happen.
That's something I brought up with Jody a lot, Les, the way the Eagles play. If you're Mike Williams, we talked about Mike Williams, and he was never getting away from the Chargers to begin with. But even if he did, what would you choose?
Right now, Herbert? It's a run-first team.
Yeah, it's a run-first team. It's a run. So if you're Devontae Adams, you're used to getting the football 100+ times, and you're Allen Robinson, and you have a chance to go to a Sean McVay offense with Matthew Stafford chucking the football down the field vertically. It's more fun. I just talked about Fletcher Cox, and when he was upset last year early in the season, he was used to playing under Jim Schwartz, where it was 3 technique and go get the quarterback. And all of a sudden, Gannon shows up and says, well, you got to play some 5, you got to play 3, you got to play 4-eye. It's not as much fun. Receivers want the football. Are the Eagles, is that part of the problem for the Eagles right now because of the way they play offense?
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it too deeply, but that could be very much a part of it. They're not, for a lot of reasons, they're just not a super attractive destination for an offensive player. Nobody really knows what Jalen Hurts is, unless you find a guy that played with Jalen Hurts and really likes Jalen Hurts or something like that. It's not clear that he's going to be an elite quarterback or even that he's going to be the quarterback here after this season. It's they're probably down the list for a lot of these guys. And it's frustrating for fans because that is a huge need. I think they have to somehow upgrade there. And I don't want to, we've talked, I think, about all the draft picks that they've used at wide receiver the last several years, which has made their defense really old and creaky because they didn't spend those draft picks on corners or edge rushers or linebackers, certainly not linebackers, and or safeties. And, to think that you might have to go real high with a wide receiver yet again is frustrating, I think.
All right, so let me ask this question to both you guys. If the Eagles are a run-heavy offense and wide receivers are going to blanch at joining the Eagles because they don't pass it enough, they didn't last year, and you're projecting going forward that they're not going to do it this year, how the hell are they ever supposed to change the narrative? Do we have to wait till Jalen Hurts is gone and done? Do they have to trade for a guy who's made? Oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts did make the Pro Bowl this year as an alternate third.
Well, he didn't ever get there, though. He was chosen as an alternate, but
Right.
he didn't get into the roster.
You get the point I'm trying to make. How do they become an offense that a team can actually say, hey, if we put the most money out there, we can get one of the most talented wide receivers in the league? How do they go about doing that?
Well, winning. You know, I think if you win the division, if you're clearly, you know, a team that wins a playoff game or two, the style of offense becomes less important. But I think in order to win, they're going to have to be a little better of a passing team. It's a little bit chicken and egg, Jody.
Yeah.
You raise a good question. They're just going to have to, you know, Jalen Hurts proving himself, having a great year and developing as a passer, you know, who sees options and makes reads and things like that. That's how you get there, I guess.
Yeah, and I think short term, I'll add to what Les said. I would say trade. They tried to trade for Calvin Ridley. We brought up Robert Woods. If you trade for somebody, they got to come in. There's no, you know, they might be unhappy. They might prefer to go somewhere else, but they're under contract. They got to come in. And then if you play better, and Calvin Ridley was here and he caught 80 balls for 1,300 yards like he did in Atlanta, you know, maybe the narrative changes. So I think the trade market is something people don't realize is real. And Robert Woods makes a lot of sense. He's coming off a torn ACL, so you have to be, he's got to be medically cleared. But they have too many receivers in the Rams. I mean, those guys aren't going to be happy because all of them there's only one football. You got to get the ball to Cooper Kupp. You got to get the ball. Now, first and foremost, are they going to bring OBJ back? Now they have Allen Robinson. Is there room for Robert Woods? I don't think so.
You brought up the Ridley thing, John, and that's probably not been discussed enough. You know, teams go into free agency with plans. You know, clearly with the Eagles, Hassan Reddick was, you know, they knew in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago that they were going to sign Hassan Reddick, I'll bet. And I'm thinking from what we're hearing that they had this trade for Calvin Ridley, you know, that they had that in their pocket and they thought that was their wide receiver, you know, and, you know, him betting on games last year wasn't on anybody's radar until it all of a sudden, whoops. So they kind of probably went into scramble mode a little bit after that, you know. That's a heck of a thing to have happen to you.
Yeah, that's some bad luck. I mean, because that's plan A. And you do have to have contingencies. And I think they did. And I think Kirk was one of them. All of a sudden, the Jaguars just pay him outrageous money. And you start going down the board. And it's not as good as your original plan. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And we'll see how it shakes out. What is plan B or C or D or E or F? That the Eagles get themselves a wide receiver. All right. This is the official nitpicking part of the show. And if I confuse you, I will apologize in advance because I'm pretty damn confused myself. And John attempted to unconfuse me yesterday in a series of texts, and he didn't come close to doing so. Nick Sirianni's contract when he first came to the Eagles was a 4-year deal. And he's already coached 1 year. So that tells me he's got 3 years left on his contract. So everywhere, everyone is reporting that Howie Roseman signed a 3-year contract extension, which means he had a year to go, which would be this upcoming year, 2022. And he tacked 3 more years on top of it. So that means Howie's going to be the GM for another 4 years contractually. But Nick Sirianni only has 3 years left on his deal. And everyone is reporting that their deals run concurrently. Well, no, they don't. Howie's got an extra year because he did a 3-year extension to the 1 year he had. And I know that it all comes down to the way
calendar.
Right.
The
But
calendar.
if you say, John, if you say it runs through, that's the way everybody is reporting it. It runs through a specific season. Does that season does that not include that season? If it runs through, you would think it goes to the end of that season, but it doesn't. It goes to the date of when it's signed, which is the early part of the year. January. With Howie, we're told it was several weeks ago, so it probably was signed in February. It's very deceiving, and it annoys the snot out of me. Am I just a nitpicker, Les?
That's pretty nitpicky, Jody. I have no idea what the deal is there. The important thing is he's got a new contract, so he's not going to get fired this year or probably next year. Although, if the season's a disaster, they can fire. There's no salary cap for general managers.
True.
You can fire a general manager. The only thing that matters with a general manager is whether his contract is up or not. After that, I don't pay it any attention whatsoever. Now, they put themselves in a situation where Howie's contract is not going to be up for the next few years. So, they're clearly not looking to move on, but they can move on at any point. It's meaningless. The contract isn't going to, they're not going to, if they go 2-15 next season, they're not going to say,
they're going to fire the coach.
We've got Howie under contract for a couple more years here. I guess we'll just have to keep on with this.
Well, they might keep on with Howie, but they're going to fire the coach.
No, they will not.
That's a joke.
It just doesn't really matter unless the guy's contract is up. It doesn't really matter.
There's
you're right, Jody. People are saying that, and I don't have an answer for you. It's a good eagle eye catch by you, but I don't think it's really meaningful.
We all got we all have our nitpicks. One of my nitpicks, Les, is passer rating. When people call it quarterback rating.
Yeah, that's a different stat.
It's passer rating.
ESPN has quarterback rating, which no one else uses. But that is a different stat that's figured entirely differently.
And it doesn't encompass the passer rating. So
right.
It doesn't encompass Jalen Hurts' ability to run the football, for instance. So one of my pet peeves, nobody cares.
So see, I like when people start talking about the referees. There is only one referee. There are a lot of officials
only one. Yeah,
on the field.
Exactly. That's a good one.
There aren't any referees.
That's a good one. When people call the NBA season a year, that drives me crazy because it encompasses, it's a season because it encompasses 2 calendar years.
Okay.
But again, that's a pet peeve. It doesn't really matter. But here's the thing. What I was trying to explain with Jody, I'm doing contracts run, as you know, Les. Player contracts end March to March. They don't end after a season, March to March. Nick Sirianni's runs January to January. It might be February to February for other coaches who get hired a little bit later in the hiring cycle. Personnel executives, scouts run May to May after the draft. Everybody's on a different calendar. On a different calendar. So when you say, it depends on the text you get. My guess is somebody got a text that the Eagles said through 20, Nick, they're aligned. They're aligned, and that's generally what you do with a head coach in a GM.
And I think Nick's success or lack thereof will have an impact on whether Howie gets a contract.
Because it's going to be
I don't think, people will, we all kid, Howie's been here since he was a small child, and I think we all kid about how they're never going to do, he's there for life. But we've seen in the past with Joe Banner,
Joe was a childhood friend.
Yeah. We've seen with Andy Reid. We've seen, Jeffrey Lurie. If the Eagles don't do well soon, if this rebuilding project that Howie is undertaking doesn't go well, Howie will not be the general manager 3 or 4 or 5 years from now.
No. He's already the only general manager that has gotten to hire 3 coaches or had his, to do 4, that would be a tough sell. That would
And
be
also,
a really tough sell.
I'll bring this up real quickly. There's the whole matter of, Jeffrey's 70 and his son Julian is suddenly taking a much more visible role in the organization. Is very close to Alec Hallaby, the analytics guy, who probably has aspirations to be a general manager someday. And we don't know how all that's going to shake out down the line. Maybe
everybody has a shelf life.
Yeah, there's
even
nothing
Howie
forever,
Roseman. Yeah, and I would bet. I think you're right, Les. I think the Howie Roseman era, I'm going to predict it right now, will end when the Eagles shift from Jeffrey Lurie to Julian Lurie.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
And that could be 10 years from now.
I was going to say, the good prediction, J-Mac, but you got to add the year to it. You got to tell me what year this is happening.
I don't want to go that far. Could be 2, could be 10. That's my prediction.
Yeah,
when it ends for Howie.
All right, so Jeff Lurie's still in charge this year, and the Eagles did get Hassan Reddick, which I thought was a very good signing. Kind of predicted it a year in advance. And McMullen's going to predict. I predicted they were going to sign Hassan Reddick last year, and they didn't. But they got him this year. So
I thought they should have. I was a little disappointed they didn't last year.
Right, you and I were on that same page. All right, so when does Jeff crack the whip and say, Howie, okay, we got this Fletcher Cox thing done, which, oh, by the way, they don't. We'll see if it shakes out in the next 24 hours. What's going to be the next thing the Eagles do? Or are we going to wait till July like we did last year for Steven Nelson? How many days, McMullen, did you and I have to do Bird 65?
Oh, yeah.
When are they going to get CB2?
And Steve Nelson, by the way, showed up
with that.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah.
They did end up with a CB2, and he was a very decent, very solid CB2. He wasn't an all-pro, but he was okay.
He showed up 2 days before camp, and he was starting on the first day of camp. Right, he was out there. Yeah,
they need to fix their safety situation, and they need a wide receiver, but it doesn't have to happen tomorrow, or next week. Again, the draft is really in the long run. I've never heard of the Eagles having 3 first-round picks. I don't believe they've ever had 3 first-round picks. Now, whether they'll actually make 3 first-round picks is an excellent question, but for me, that's the offseason. That's what Howie Roseman gets evaluated on, and in the long run, what he does with this golden opportunity to add, vital talent to the young end of the roster. And they do have to do a decent job of filling in some spots, between now and training camp. But I just don't think free agency is going to make them. I don't think there's anything they can do at this point in free agency that's going to make you say, all right, 12-5, they're right up there with the best teams in the NFC.
All right, last one from me, and follow Les on Twitter at Les Bowen. Still doing some work with the Associated Press. Always appreciate him coming on the program. 2, actually. I'm going to stick you with 2.
Okay.
Because for people that don't know, Les used to cover the Philadelphia Flyers before the Philadelphia Eagles. So 1, is Claude Geru going to get traded? That's number 1. And number 2, did you see that Carson Wentz suit at the introductory press conference?
Yes, on the Geru thing, apparently he didn't go with them to Ottawa last night. They're playing in Ottawa tonight, so obviously they're trading him. It's probably going to be for prospects. He's a free agent at the end of the season, so the team that gets him is just getting him for the playoffs. So you're not going to get like some outrageous haul of great players, even though he's still a very, very good player. You're going to get a couple prospects, and we'll see how that goes. I guess Florida is whatever. I have no connection with this anymore in terms of reporting, but everybody's saying the Florida Panthers are willing to give up a couple good prospects for Claude Geru, and that would be a good spring destination, spring break for Claude in Florida. The Carson Wentz thing, oh my God, that's huge. There were a lot of talks about hot dogs and mustard, and Yeah, my thought was when he gets traded to Kansas City in a few years, he can trot that same outfit out again. He looked like their mascot, you know. But the Carson Wentz thing, though, John, the press conference, you probably noticed this. He was asked about Chris Ballard, the Indianapolis general manager, saying that some of the criticism was justified, and he was asked if he agreed. And his answer was, well, you'll have to say which criticism because there's so many of them.
Ooh.
You know, and that's just such a deflecting, not dealing with the subject matter answer. That was like Chip Kelly level, you know. It's so disappointing. That to me indicates a guy that just isn't ready to confront his shortcomings and talk about them in an honest way. And I don't think it boded well.
That's been Carson's way for a good couple of years now, so no one should really be that surprised by it. And I actually thought he gave a good answer about coming back here to Philadelphia, that he knows he's going to hear a little bit of everything and it's noise, and you got to be able to push the noise aside. I actually thought he gave a good answer to that one. Maybe not the one about the criticism in Indianapolis. And oh, by the way, since we're all making predictions, Claude Geru goes to Florida today, but he re-signs with the Flyers this offseason.
Very well could happen, yeah.
Takes those couple months, goes down, makes a Stanley Cup run, lets his young sons get a little sun in their face, but then he comes back here to Philadelphia because, much like Fletcher Cox, I think he likes Philadelphia. See, for all you free agents out there, the people who have been here for a long time want to stay here. Even if they leave, they come back. So why don't you just show up for a first time? All right, that's great stuff. Appreciate you coming on. As always, thanks, bud.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
That is Les Bowen here with us on Birds 365. All right, we still got almost an hour to play. John McMullen, Jody McDonald coming back on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
You got the Mac and Mac guys here with John Birds 365, a Football Friday edition. Thanks, Les Bowen, for hopping on board. We've been jumping around, started with Fletcher Cox, talked a little bit about Devonta Adams, Howie Roseman's contract extension. Les is right. And I know I'm being a blatant, obvious nitpicker about how much time he's got left, how much time Sirianni's got left, the way that reports and releases are worded, and what through a year means and all that stuff. But Les is right. In other words, Howie's not going anywhere. It's a year-to-year thing because there always is the possibility of 2-15. Not likely for this Eagle team this upcoming season. So it means Howie's job is not going to be on the line. Yeah, at any time you can be fired if you have a god-awful fall through the floor type season, but none of us expect that for the Eagles this upcoming year.
Doug Peterson, the example of that,
there you go.
Aligned with Howie Roseman before, and they fired Doug Peterson. And many thought they should fire both. I think you're one of those, Joe.
That would be correct.
And they would have been aligned in the firing, but they weren't. So you had to realign because, that's generally what you want in the NFL. You want the head coach and the GM to be on the same timetable. But yeah, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter in those two positions. Occasionally, Kevin Colbert, is going to retire. Occasionally, and I don't know if his contract ran out or what. He might have 2 years left. I don't know. But he retired. He walked away. With those two positions, you're either getting fired or you're retiring in the best case scenario. Very rarely. I can't think. I'm sure it happened in the older days, when in the modern world. Very rarely are you going to see a head coach or GM's contract expire and him go somewhere else and have the ability to be sort of a free agent. Very rarely is that going to happen. Occasionally you see a trade. You might even, but they're going to get fired. Bump Phillips. Coaches are hired to be fired. That's how it works. GMs, same way. They're going to get fired. But yeah, the calendar is coaches January to January, sometimes February. Players March to March. Scouts May to May. That's the calendar.
And I understand the calendar, but I think it's inaccurate when they say, just from a fan's conceptual standpoint, a contract runs through when the contract actually ends at the beginning of a year before season. When you say a contract runs through,
but let me ask you this. Let me nitpick on that then, Jody. Let me nitpick back there.
Sure.
Just because the fans think that's incorrect. Like I said, player contracts, and this year was March 16th. That's when their contracts ended. Now, I get you. Fans don't care. But isn't that the nitpicking? They're the ones who are wrong. Their contract, in other words, a free agent, Derek Barnett, his contract didn't end with the Eagles after they lost in Tampa Bay. The season's over. His contract didn't end. His contract didn't end until March 16th.
Right. So anyone who reports that Derek Barnett's contract runs through 2022, it just sounds wrong. It doesn't run through 2022 because he will be playing in 2022 with another team because his contract ended with the Philadelphia Eagles. But technically, it ran through 2022 because it didn't end till March of 2022. And I think most people think the season should be included in a year you're saying it runs through.
Well, yeah, but then you're nitpicking individual, and you'd have to point me to the report. January, I forget the day Nick signed, but it was somewhere in January.
Right.
So January of 2021, what year? Yeah, January of 2021 through January of 2025. 21 to 22, 22 to 23, 23 to 24, 24 to 25. That's the 4 years.
Right. So when someone reports that,
but then you got to take it up with that guy.
Through 2025,
then you got to take it up.
It does not include the 2025 season,
Jody,
and that's disingenuous.
If you would, nobody's. Well, I don't know who you're talking about, but nobody's being disingenuous. But if you think they're being disingenuous, you got to call out that specific reporter or whatever.
Right.
But then you're spending your entire time bogged down in the minutia that people are not being disingenuous. They're just don't understand the calendar. And that's why I bring it up with the fan base, saying, well, Derek Barnett's a free agent. No, he's not. Not after the season. He's a free agent on March 16th. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I could spend my day nitpicking that, but it doesn't matter. I get what they mean. In this case, the key word, and that's what I was trying to get, the key word is aligned. They're aligned. So they are aligned at the same time, and that's generally how NFL teams want to do business. What was weird is the firing of Peterson, and it took them this long to align Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman. I remember we were talking about this when somebody pointed out, hey, Howie's contract is up in 2022. And by the way, his contract was probably up again. Doug's would have been up in January. Howie's probably would have been up in May. I don't know that for a fact. Depends on when he signed it. Depends on how they structured it. But they were aligned, not to the specific day, but through the same period of time on the NFL calendar. Same thing with Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman now. But yeah, people get it wrong, but I don't think they're being disingenuous. It's like me.
They're inaccurate. You said you have to go specific by specific report. Do we give the Inquirer credit as being a creditable source here in Philadelphia?
Yeah, and I don't even know if they put through. Yeah, I mean, feel free.
I'll read it right here. The GM's new deal runs through TRTHROUGH 2025. Now, if I read that, to me, a football fan, that means including the 2025 season. Well, if his contract runs concurrent with the coach is here for the 2022 season.
Let me ask you this, because I didn't really read the Inquirer, but do they have that they're aligned?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what happened. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. The Eagles sent him a text. It said through 2025, whatever. And the key part is aligned, as I said, or whatever word they used. I don't know what the Inquirer used. The key part is aligned.
Roseman's deal runs concurrently with the 4-year contract.
All right.
Head coach Nick Sirianni signed when he was hired
Correct.
in 2020.
That's the key part. That's the key part to fans. It should be the key part.
Correct.
Now, I can't force you to not be upset by the nitpicking. I can tell you what happened. I can tell you nobody's disingenuous. They probably got a text. They probably used the same wording as the text, and they probably didn't do the math, and they probably didn't look into it and say, hey, you know what? These contracts, because nobody cares that Derek Barnett's, except me, that Derek Barnett's contract ended on March 16th, and he wasn't a free agent after the season. Nobody cares. That's the nitpicking. Like I said, right. I care when people call the NBA a year. This year, Steph Curry led the league in three. I hate that. Doesn't matter. I realize it doesn't matter. So I can't force you to not be upset and not nitpick. But the most important part of this story, by far, for a fan, is that Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman are aligned as a coach and GM from a time perspective. And even that, to be honest, Jody, as Les pointed out, if they want to fire one, they'll fire one. Now, it's not like their contracts are going to run out. They're either going to be successful and they're going to get another deal, or they're going to get fired, and none of it's going to matter anyway. So I guess that's my biggest point. To keep if you're playing the gatekeeper of the fan, by far the biggest part of the story is that the two are aligned.
Right.
By far.
And I just am pointing out the inaccuracy of the way that it is described by some outlets. And Howie Roseman's going to be here for a while. Should we be questioning why Howie Roseman didn't get a cornerback like Casey Hayward, who signed yesterday with the Atlanta Falcons? They're looking at cornerbacks. They need a veteran cornerback. There was a veteran cornerback that was out there. Atlanta's all wrapped up in being able to acquire Desean Watson, yet they were able to land a solid veteran defensive cornerback like Casey Hayward. Is Howie too caught up with how many years he's got left or what he's doing to save $1 million under Fletcher Cox's redone deal?
Yeah, I mean, 32. The good player, by the way. He's been a good player, I think, an underrated player for a really long time. Maybe to a degree, the Eagles are too disciplined, to be honest. For the most part, I think it's good, but occasionally, like, they're really stringent on we came to 32 cornerback. 30 to begin with is a dirty word in this league now. Now there's certain guys you see that Von Miller's got his money. People love pass rushers, and Chandler Jones got his money. People love pass rushers, but corners, I'm surprised Hayward got as much as he did. Sometimes I wonder if the Eagles are too disciplined and should look at more of these aging players for a year or two, because everything's gotten shortened in the NFL over the past 5-10 years. In other words, it used to be, think about 5-year intervals. Then now it's 3. Now it's 3. In a lot of ways, it's really 2. They say it's 3, but in a lot of ways, it's really 2. So if you're operating, and for argument's sake, let's say 3 years, a 3-year window, why is it so important? Well, he's got to be 26. He's got to be coming off his first year contract. Why, if you're only thinking ahead 3 years, and again, I think it's 2, why is it so important? So that, I think, is a legitimate criticism. You're going to have to turn this thing over anyway. Like I've already said, Jody, another prediction. I've been throwing out some predictions. Look at the top contracts in this free agent cycle. We revisit this in 2 years. The vast majority of them are either out the door or got to rework their deals because they're too expensive.
Right.
The vast majority. And I mean vast majority. So why is there still this people hang on to this mentality? Well, we got to have this guy for 5 years. No, you don't. I mean, you hope, especially quarterback, you hope you can find the guy who's going to be there for Tom Brady levels. But everything else, you just keep turning it over.
Yep.
I think the Eagles are a little bit too disciplined, which is a weird criticism, but I think it's a valid one.
One of the contracts that was signed this week that I thought of you immediately when I read it. Von Miller signed a 5-year deal with the Buffalo Bills. He has no chance to fulfill that full 5-year contract. Zero. There is no way that that's happening. It's either going to be terminated in advance or it's going to be renegotiated and or restructured. It has no chance. It is currently written to be completely honored over the course of the contract. None. So when you see all these contract signings, you have to take them at face value. Is it a 2-year deal dressed up as a 5-year deal? Is it a 1-year deal dressed up as a 3-year deal? Oh, yeah, there are lots of different ways that it can shake out, and you got to get into the weeds and the details of how much is guaranteed, which will tell you when the team can get out of it. But it seems like the Eagles are trying to get down to the bare minimum of deals. The 3-year deal for Reddick looks like it's going to be at least a 2-year deal, if not the full 3-year deal. But the Eagles only like to do deals that can get renegotiated with guys that they drafted. And they just continue to re-up and redo and push money down the line and excuse me, push dead cap hits off.
And when it comes to veteran players, and they do sign veteran players, and you go back to the Super Bowl year, we talk about it all the time, and the Chris Longs and the LeGarrette Blunts and the Patrick Robinsons, and, you know, they were a little bit older at the time for their positions.
Was Robinson actually a multi-year deal? Because I know Long.
He got a 2-year deal. But generally, when they go after players with a little tread off the tire, it's going to be 1-year deals. 1 year, and those generally come later in the process. And sometimes you hit on those, Chris Long, and then they re-upped them. And LeGarrette Blount, at least for a short time, worked. And a lot of times they don't work. But I mean, that's where the Eagles are disciplined. And it certainly helps to move on from guys like that if it doesn't work. You know, you don't even think about it. The Ryan Kerrigan's another example. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, they just move on. Shot. Yeah. But they're generally 90% of the time going to be 1-year deals. And those happen later in the process. Steve Nelson, 1-year deal. By the way, Steve Nelson did you see Steve Nelson on Twitter? He was having a bit of a meltdown yesterday. And by the way, he said he wasn't vaccinated. Did not know that. Went through the whole year, didn't get sick, wasn't vaccinated. Now it doesn't matter. So, good for Steve.
But if he comes back, he's still in the protocol. Once you're vaccinated, then they stop testing you forever. You're cleared, but if you've never actually been vaccinated, you do have to stand.
Yeah, I mean, I think things can change. I don't think they're going to have any as of right now.
You think there are going to be no protocols?
None. Zero. Wow. Zero. Well, they let us in the NovaCare complex yesterday for the first time in 2 years. So there you have it.
With or without mask?
Without.
No mask, no nothing?
Well, some people had masks. It's up to the individual person.
Choice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. First time in over 2 years. So the NFL has declared, I joked yesterday, I think, on the show. Doesn't matter what the CDC says or the WHO. The NFL has declared the pandemic over.
It's over. All right. The pandemic may be over, but the Mac edition of Bird 365 is not. We still got time to chop it up. We've gone a pretty good long period of time without talking about quarterback, haven't we, today? Yeah. Apparently, the Desean Watson thing is getting close. Those who really believe that Desean Watson was coming here are going to have some explaining to do.
No, there's still time. There's still time for Howie to pop up like a whack-a-mole and say, gotcha.
He got that new contract. I don't think it's going to change the fact that Desean Watson is going elsewhere, not here to Philadelphia. We'll talk about it next year on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that. Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Football Friday here on Bridge 365 with John McMullen and Jody McDonald. We've had a lot of fun all off season with the quarterback carousel. And
hey, speaking of fun, I don't know if Xander can do this, but before we get into the quarterback stuff, Jody, I want to show you something the Eagles put up in the Novi. I mentioned we were in the building for the first time in 2 years. If Xander's in Atlantic City, here we go. He's going to put it up. That is what is up in the NovaCare Complex auditorium. They put up a basketball hoop for our buddy Nick Sirianni.
Just for spits and giggles?
I have no idea, because it is. So anybody who's been to the NovaCare Complex who have seen the auditorium, you know, there's a big stage. Think a middle school gym where you have the stage where they do the play. So they have the stage where they do the press conferences. And then you have this auditorium and it slopes up like a movie theater. And there's a basketball hoop, as Xander was able to just show, attached to the wall now. Yeah, I don't know the practicality of it, because there's all seats right near it. There's a slope. So I don't know what they're doing.
Can't play a game there or anything.
No, but there you have it. So
good for Nick. He's Mr. Competitive. And 24/7, Nick Sirianni's ready to compete. You just wake up in the middle of the night, Nick Sirianni's ready to compete and take a shot or do rock, paper, scissors. We get it. The coach likes competition.
So there you have it. That's where they have their meetings. So he's probably taking a shot.
And when in doubt, take a shot while you're discussing the future of the organization. The quarterback carousel continues to spin, and it may spin with a landing for Desean Watson as early as today, tomorrow. They met with 4 different teams, none of which were the Philadelphia Eagles, the Saints, the Falcons, the Browns, and who am I missing? Panthers, right, who officially said that they nodded out yesterday. They do not believe they can get a deal done and talk Desean Watson into becoming a Panther. So it seems like it's down to the Falcons and the Saints. And the Falcons yesterday procured an agreement from Matt Ryan to push back a guaranteed bonus that he was supposed to get today all the way till Tuesday. So it gives him a couple of days to work out a deal. That's pretty gracious of Matt Ryan. If it were me, I would say, no, I'd pull a Fletcher Cox. We're not getting past that date. You're writing a check. If you have to take drastic measures to release me, okay, fine, but I want my money. But Matt Ryan gave the Falcons some latitude, so it very much looks like Desean Watson is going to land with the Atlanta Falcons. Where's Matt Ryan going to land?
I know a lot of teams could use Matt Ryan. Most notably, I would think Indianapolis. I don't, Indianapolis has been looking, obviously, for the long-term answer at quarterback. Every year it's been different since Andrew Luck has retired, which was obviously a really bad blow for that organization. And then they haven't been able to figure it out. Phillip Rivers was really, really good the one year he was there as an aging player, and obviously then retired. They could try that route again with Matt Ryan and be a playoff team. I don't, the AFC West looks so loaded now. I don't think they'd be a significant Super Bowl contender, but I think they'd be a playoff contender. So it kind of depends, and we've talked about the quarterbacks in the draft. Nobody seems all hell-bent on saying anybody is the answer there. So you're going to have to do something. Cleveland in the mix because Baker Mayfield's not happy because they went in. Now, they say they're not going to trade Baker, but if he creates as many waves as you can do in the player empowerment era, which is really quarterback empowerment in the NFL, I don't know how you move forward if you're Cleveland in that direction. Carolina, they've been the one team. They've been on Desean Watson since day one, and they've wasted, essentially 2 years of their football life going after this guy. They're not going to be able to get him. I don't think they want to run it back with Sam Darnold, so they need a quarterback. I mean, is Matt Ryan good enough for San Francisco to say, remember Kyle Shanahan, Matt Ryan, Atlanta, is he good enough still to say that's a team that could look at themselves and say, we're a legit Super Bowl contender if we get a quarterback? Is he that guy? I only throw them in the mix because of Kyle's history with Matt Ryan.
Here's why I'll say no, and this ties into something that you've been hammering of late about length of contracts. You took a quarterback with the third pick. Where'd they take Trey Lance? Third overall pick in the draft. All right, so you get him cheap for the first 4 years, and then the fifth year, the contract extension, it jumps up, but it's not the outrageous top of the market $35 million plus, which you're going to have to pay eventually. But that's an investment. When you put that kind of draft capital out there, if you're going to go get a quarterback like Matt Ryan, and even if it's just 1 year, you're not getting any dividends out of Trey Lance until at the earliest year 3. And if you go get a Matt Ryan, you're thinking, well, it's certainly a year, and then maybe the next year, may the best man win. And you have a competition. If Matt Ryan's still the best, you go with him another year. If not, Trey sits for a third year. The days of Aaron Rodgers seem to be done, where you can have an apprentice and sit on the bench for a period of time. No, you're the third pick in the draft. You're expected to play. You got to get in there.
Yeah,
if not, Trey Lance has that one big year. You finally put him in. Then guess what? Already you paid him $30 million. So the whole advantage of having a quarterback on a rookie deal went right by the boards while you just let him sit there with a clipboard in his hand. So if you're asking me what San Francisco should do, I know the relationship, you're right, between the coach and the quarterback and Atlanta and everything. No. Either you give this Lance kid a chance to play, or you admit that you made a mistake and wasted the third pick in the draft.
Well, that's the difficult part of this, Jody, being honest with yourself. Look, I think if Trey Lance showed enough, I thought he was going to be the starter by the end of last season, to be honest. I thought it was going to be an Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick type situation with Jimmy Garoppolo being Alex Smith, and ultimately Trey Lance would take over because he had more explosive ability for that offense. Didn't work out that way. So they said right away he's not ready to play. Maybe they did make a mistake. The point I'm trying to say is, if you think you have a legitimate chance at the Super Bowl, I mean, you got to go for it, don't you?
See, here's the question I would have for you on that front. He's better. The question is, how much better? How much of an upgrade is Matt Ryan over Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, I'm not saying Jimmy. They're moving on from Jimmy. I'm saying Trey Lance. In other words, if they say to themselves, we're just the quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl, if they believe that. And look, I mean, so many things.
So yeah, either you're not understanding my question, or maybe I'm asking it incorrectly. It's still a comparison of Jimmy Garoppolo to Matt Ryan. If you're moving on from Jimmy, well, then it's simple. You're going to Trey Lance. If you're telling me, no, Jody, it's not that simple. They're not committed to Lance. They're still open to getting a quarterback. So again, I'll ask the question. How much better is Matt Ryan than Jimmy Garoppolo? You have Garoppolo right now. He's under contract. He's yours. You can play him as your starting quarterback. If you believe you need an upgrade from that, how big an upgrade is Matt Ryan from where Jimmy Garoppolo is at right now?
Yeah, maybe you're misunderstanding my point. Yeah, that they know they want an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. And yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why I said that the real discussion for them is Matt Ryan versus Trey Lance and where you are with Trey Lance. And that's the hard part. The hard part is always the evaluation. Only they know where they are with Trey Lance. And if they believe that he can take over, and they believe what he was when they took him at number 3, because clearly if you're going up to take a kid at number 3, you think this is the guy.
Right.
And the most difficult thing is to be honest with yourself. If they have gotten him in the building and see him every day and say, well, you know, we got a short window here to go make a run at the Super Bowl. We need a guy who can get us there, a veteran quarterback, older than Matt Stafford, more in the Phillip Rivers mode, but still a good quarterback. You know, I don't think it's going to happen. I just throw it out there because I know Kyle Shanahan loves the guy. You know, maybe he talks the organization into it. I just don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. You know, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I think they have a better odds. If we're putting odds on this, I think they have a better chance if they get Matt Ryan than if they play Trey Lance. I didn't even put Jimmy Garoppolo in the conversation because they've moved on mentally, is what I'm talking about. They know they need to get better than that. So the question is Trey Lance the guy as they thought he was going to be, or are they having hesitations? And we talk about this lesser, it's much easier decision, right? We talk about this with Jalen Reagor all the time. When you just admit to yourself you made a mistake and pull the plug, it's much more difficult to do with the quarterback position at number 3 overall. But if you think the guy isn't ready, you think the guy isn't ready.
So let me get a prediction out of you. Where's Jimmy Garoppolo going to be playing in 2022?
Well, I think he's got to wait for the sort of dominoes. He's always been, down sort of stream. So, the first domino was Aaron Rodgers and the second domino was Russell Wilson, and it keeps going down, and we'll see where Sean goes. And then there's another domino from that. And if I think it's going to be Atlanta. It sounds like you think it's going to be Atlanta. Then you got a Matt Ryan domino, and you got to keep going downstream. And then ultimately there's going to be a spot. It might be Carolina, who doesn't want to go forward with Sam Darnold. Say, all right, let's bring him in. But I think he's got to wait for all these dominoes. I mean, Marcus Mariota, it's interesting. Mitchell Trubisky, smart to get it done quickly. Obviously, he didn't get a huge deal, but now he's got to get a chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. If somebody gives you that opportunity, if somebody gets antsy, you better jump at it, because there's still a lot of dominoes that have to fall.
So are you projecting that Garoppolo won't get a chance to be a starter, or will get
No, he'll get a chance to be a starter. He's a starter. But I do think people want to, examine the bigger names before they get to. I think he's better than Mitchell Trubisky, but a lot of NFL teams think differently because of Mitchell's age and athleticism, and the new way and his ability to extend plays, and we talk about it all the time. I'm just not a Mitchell Trubisky fan. So I, there aren't 32 better quarterbacks in the world than Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll get a starting job, but he's probably going to have to be patient.
And you think he's just flat out worn out his welcome with San Francisco?
Yeah,
there's no chance that he's their opening day quarterback next year.
He kind of already intimated that after the season. He knows the score. He's not coming back to San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm not going to put the percentage at 0. I'll put it below 50. That's for damn sure. Probably at about 20%. But I would not put it at 0. I still think Shanahan likes him. He acknowledges he's not a top 10 quarterback, probably not a top half quarterback. But while you and I or others may have him in the bottom third, I don't know that Shanahan puts him there. And yeah, they'll do their due diligence to see what else is out there. But sometimes you just either, if you like the guy, but the price is too much, that means you don't get him. If you don't like the guy as much as somebody else, that means you don't get him. San Francisco may play the game all off season and then just say, all right, I guess we're coming back with Jimmy G and Trey again.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think, if you're forcing me to predict San Francisco, ultimately, I think Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback in San Francisco. Because I don't, when you do what they did to get that quarterback, it hamstrings you. And people, again, we see it locally in a much less important position. It's hard to admit a mistake if you think you made a mistake, and they're going to throw him out there and see what happens. I don't think he would be willing to come back as a backup because I think he thinks he's a starter, and I agree with him. And ultimately, I think that's why he kind of spoke the way he spoke after the season, and kind of sees the writing on the wall. My curveball is, San Francisco's a really good team, except for the quarterback. And do they, because of the history, do they entertain trying to win one with a veteran quarterback? That's my curveball.
No, here I got that lends itself to a couple more quarterback questions. If what you just said was accurate, San Francisco's a very good team, except for the quarterback. How do they not get involved with Desean Watson if that's the case?
How did they not get involved with Tom Brady? I don't. You got to ask John Lynch. Deshaun's a little bit more understandable because of the off the field issues, and but there were 12 teams calling. Eagles were one of them, by the way. Actually, more than 12, I was told. And the Eagles got shut down in 5 minutes, from what I was told. Maybe they were one of those 12 teams. Maybe they did the cursory thing. They could have had Tom Brady.
But that was before. That was a year before.
Yeah, a year before. I'm not talking
2 years ago. They had a chance at Tom Brady. We're talking about now.
Yeah, but I'm not.
And despite what Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk attempted to do, he couldn't get Brady to San Francisco. Brady was under contract to Tampa Bay. It wasn't as simple as Florio tried to make it out. So I'm not going to.
No. I'm not talking. I'm talking about the original move off New England. I'm not talking about now. But I'll also say this. Some people look at. We always talk about how you grade general managers. How you evaluate general managers, because Howie's such a lightning rod here in Philadelphia. I'll say this about John Lynch. I mean, they have a great roster. They have a really good team, I just mentioned. So he's done a lot of good things. But, man, he could have had Aaron Rodgers. He could have had his choice. They both wanted to play there. And he said, we're good. We're good. I got a problem with that. If those two are dropping in your lap and you're going, I think I'll go with Trey Lance, I got a problem with that. I got a big problem with that. Right. Now, Aaron's kind of a whack job at this point, let's be honest. But I mean, he's a really good player. They both always wanted to go back home. They both always wanted to play for the San Francisco 49ers. And those are two of the 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time, in my estimation. Certainly number one. And then wherever you want to place Rodgers, I got a problem with that. I really do.
Here's where I critique the 49ers above and beyond everything else. They got aggressive to get in position to go get Trey Lance. Now, I know he played on a smaller scale. He wasn't a major conference guy, so you knew there was going to be a learning curve. But I'm sorry, when you get to number 3 in the draft and you have to trade up to get there, you've made a commitment. This guy's got to be your starter year 2. You can't wait 2 years, 3 years.
Well, and that's kind of the thing we were talking about before about windows. No 5 more windows. Now they're 3-year windows. That's what GMs say. It's 3. But it's really, in my estimation, it's really 2 windows. So what are you worried about? I want to find Trey Lance for 15 years. Come on. If you get a Super Bowl title with 2 years of Tom Brady, you think Tampa's happy? And they make a deep playoff run as well, and they're a play away from going back to the championship game in the second year when they lose. I think they're pretty happy. I think they're pretty stinking happy, and they would trade. But, I guess it's up to everybody and what they think and what they want.
And here's another quarterback who's got to kind of take a quick peek in the mirror today. Aaron Rodgers. What did you just call him? A kind of a weird guy, a different guy, or?
But he's if he wasn't throwing.
What Mark May call him? Complicated.
Mark Murphy, complicated fella.
A complicated fella, which is more accurate than we give it credit for. He is a very complicated fella.
I'll say this. He's probably throwing up anyway from his latest cleanse. But he's chucking a little bit more.
His ability to win in Green Bay just became more complicated because his best wide receiver said, wait, they'll give me how much? Make me the highest paid wide receiver in football? No, I'd prefer to go play with my buddy Derek Carr out there in Vegas. Tell Aaron he can pound sand. Please trade me to the Raiders. And that's exactly what happened. Tom Brady.
And by the way, Jody, I'm going to say here, and I love Davante Adams. I think he's, if he's not the best route runner in the NFL, he's certainly in the top 2 or 3. I think he's a phenomenal receiver. There's another guy. 3 years from now, I'm going to guarantee they're reworking that deal.
Reworking the deal. Yeah, they're full contracts. They're full numbers. They're agent numbers that are out there for a period of time, and then they need to be redone. Let me give you an example. Fletcher Cox, who's probably had his contract redone every year after he got past his rookie deal. Yeah. Why? Because you need to, because you want to kick the money down the can.
But I mean, as good as he is, as good as Davante Adams is, and I'm not disputing his greatness as a player, that contract is so out of whack that he might get cut in 2 years, even if he performs. And by the way, he's not going to perform at the level he did in Green Bay with Derek Carr. He's not. And
nobody's Rodgers, but it won't be that bad a drop off.
No, he'll be a great player, but he's a great player. He is a great player, but it's not going to be the same.
You quoted the immortal Phillips earlier. Coaches are hired to be fired. In the National Football League these days, contracts are written to be restructured. Nobody ever gets to the end of a contract. They all need to be redone at some point. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys. Not only do we have to come back and put a bow on the show, we got to come back and put a bow on the week. Stick around.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Mac going to wrap up a Birds 365 Friday, Football Friday. Today would be show 235. And we only have 179 days till the.
What is our 1 year anniversary, Jody? I got to figure that out.
What's that?
Our 1 year anniversary.
April. We got still a couple more weeks to go before
April
we get there.
5th, Xander tells me.
Was it the 5th? Yeah, I know it's first week of April. All right, JM, you showed us, or Xander did, the fun picture of the new basket in the Eagles auditorium down at the NovaCare complex, which you guys got back into for the first time in 2 years. I will note one other visual faux pas by the Eagles yesterday, and I give the Eagles a lot of credit. They're very good about the visuals. They're smart. They've got a good PR staff. They can craft the narrative as well as anyone. But I thought they had a faux pas yesterday that the optics did not look great. Can you guess what I'm referring to?
Let me see. I'm trying to look at some of the pictures I took. I didn't notice it offhand, so definitely didn't stick out. No. What were you?
Okay, there was one thing that kind of stuck out for me. If you're bringing Hassan Reddick into your organization, into your building for the first time, and you're allowing media members to go in and take pictures like John McMullen did, more power to you. The one thing you don't want to do is have Hassan Reddick stand next to Jordan Mailata.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like a little guy. This is going to be your savior on the defensive line. Hey. This little guy standing next to Mailata. What are you doing? You can't have those two stand next to each other because everyone looks like a pipsqueak standing next to Jordan Mailata.
Yeah. Well, you just put on the film. Jordan had a great year. He had some trouble with Hassan Reddick when they were playing Carolina. So, yeah, that's the thing, right? 6'1", 238 is what he's listed as. He says he's up to 242. Yeah, he doesn't match up against big offensive tackles. And that's what I talked about. How many times I say it, Jody? Nobody gives a shit about the run game in March. Run support or running the football. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody thinks about it. It's not anything anybody is concerned about. That's one of the things I'm concerned about. I mean, hey, but we did it on the offensive side with Devontae Smith. It was fine. All we talked about how skinny he is, how small he is, and it worked
wind
out.
Comes by, he's going to be blown over. Except he wasn't.
Kid can play. Hassan Reddick can play, but yeah, he's small. He's small, and there's no way getting around it. So, but everybody's small next to
you. Get
Jordan.
my point. Knowing that question mark, that's
look
all
at
it
this.
is a question mark is out there because he's not this big, massive defensive lineman. No, he's a slightly smaller, quick, gets to the quarterback speed type guy. You don't want to emphasize that by standing him next to Jordan Mailata.
Well, now I got to give you another picture. I'm trying to find it. So Xander, be ready. I'm going to text it to you, and maybe you can put it up before we finish, because you know I want to show you this picture. It's coming, Xander, because you'll laugh at this even more. Hopefully, he gets it up soon, because our buddy Jimmy Kempski is dwarfing Hassan Reddick. You know, Jimmy's pretty tall. Is probably 6'3", 6'4".
Not as big as BLG.
No, not as big. Look at Jimmy dwarfing Hassan Reddick. So, you know, there's a little bit of a slope there, though. But yeah, he's not a big guy. He's not a big guy.
But he can get to the quarterback, and that's what they brought him here for, was to get the quarterback. I'm just saying you don't need to enhance it visually by putting him next to the biggest guy in your room.
Yeah,
well, and one of the biggest guys in the entire National Football League.
Andre the Giant might get a run from Jordan, so that's not a concern. But yeah, he's not. He's a small. He is not a traditional defensive end.
No, and Jordan is not a traditional left tackle. He's a big and above and beyond most left tackles, who are huge to begin with. All right, so you're heading down to AC tonight, McMullen.
Rumor has it, you know, you don't want to advertise that too much, because some of the haters can come out. You know, you don't want that. So rumor has it, Jody. We'll see how it shakes.
Rumor has it Jacob Nidu will be producing the Maxwell Club Awards tonight from Atlantic City. All right, so you and I are scheduled to be back here, not in 2 and 2, because 2 means 2 days. That's about it, not 22 hours. I did point out earlier in the show that we waited till July for the Eagles to get their CB2. I'm antsy sitting here now because
you're going to be waiting.
They've got one guy, Hassan Reddick. Like him, we're pointing out that he's a little smallish compared to Jordan Mailata, but that's it. They've re-signed a couple of guys, but also made a value judgment on a couple. Certainly Boston Scott. I illuminated that yesterday. I thought they should have given him a tender. I think he's worth $2 million and change. But to this point, they've signed one guy. One. Can we just continue to say patience, patience, patience? What did you? Oh, disciplined. Howie Roseman's discipline.
Yeah, they're very disciplined. I'll put it this way. You know, I joked I got the one guy, and I don't want to pick on him because I get it, fans. You know, one day, you know, he's out there proclaiming the offseason a lost cause. You know, and the same people. Robert Woods. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to trade him, but Les brought him up. I thought it would myself. I think it makes sense. You know, if they were to trade for somebody like Robert Woods, you know, people are going to get so excited and they're going to say, "What a great!" This stuff changes quickly. Patience is real. You should exhibit some kind of patience. Steve Nelson's a perfect example.
Yep.
The Eagles got him so late. Again, 2 days before camp showed up. First play of practice, starting corner opposite Darius Slay. Never lost the job. Was a really good value signing, and you know that was in the summer. Patience, but I will say, as I said earlier in the show, Jody, maybe they're a little bit too disciplined. You know, it's okay to splash once in a while. It's okay to go out to the nice restaurant once in a while.
See, for me, there is a huge dividing line in this whole offseason, and it's called the NFL draft. And you want to get certain things done before the NFL draft so that then you can shape your draft a specific way and and then you have the draft and your second half of your offseason begins and you got to finish off the painting. We're still a pretty good way away from the draft. And I hope the Eagles have at least a couple more moves in them.
They're going to make
splash,
some
maybe
they're
not big, but they need to get a couple more things done before Harry Roseman.
I think they're going to get a receiver in here. I think they're going to get a safety in here. It's not going to be, the names everyone had hoped for. They're all gone, but they're going to make sure they don't enter the draft where you say they absolutely need this position. That's always the goal of that first wave you're talking about. The last thing you want to do is go into the draft where everybody in the NFL knows, oh, the Eagles are taking a corner or a safety or, whatever. You don't want to be in that position. And that's sort of the goal of that first wave of free agency.
We shall see if the Eagles get anything done over the weekend. If they do, we'll be here to talk about it. MacMan, have a good weekend. If you do, by chance, not that you're planning on it or anything, show up down in Atlantic City. Good luck at the craps tables.
Yeah, I'm going to stumble over to them and do something, I would think. Oh, no, I gave it away, Jody. Maybe I'll be there. Who knows? But thank you. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back.
Done deal. We will be back Monday here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.